a podcast focused on LGBTQIA plus literature, brought to you by the Ocean County Library's Ocean Pride Committee.
I'm Diane, pronouns she, her. I work in the Toms River branch, and I'm on the Ocean Pride Committee.
And hi, I'm May. I work in the Children's Department at the Manchester branch, and I'm also on the Ocean Pride Committee. I use the pronouns she, they.
Okay, today we're going to talk about LGBTQIA plus children's books, and we're just going to have a conversation about the different books that are around and available in the Ocean County Library.
So this, I told Diane, was probably one of the hardest decisions of my lifetime. I've taken out over 60 children's books, mostly picture books, talking about gender, talking about sexuality, talking about families. It was really hard, and even now I'm sitting right next to a stack of 15 books. But my plan today is to review a few different things. I wanted to be able to approach the history of queer books, and then also I wanted to recommend some middle readers picture books, and I just want to do a shout out for a board book, and we'll take it from there. I'm going to read a few excerpts from some of these, usually the pages that make me teary-eyed. But let's start with the history of queer books. Up until recently, let's say last 15 years, there weren't a lot of options for picture books for queer families. The two main ones were Heather Has Two Mommies and Daddy's Roommate, right on the nose. Yep. With those two. And those two were some of the most challenged books over time. But yeah, that's all parents had.
Yeah, I know, my children, their dad was gay. And when I was looking for a book for them, this was 20 years ago, I couldn't find anything. And one of my college professors suggested Daddy's Roommate. And they, I think, had it in their office. And that's how I found it. It wasn't something I could go and find easily. You had to special order it. So when May was talking about this, I was so excited that we have so many books in our collection for families.
So I'm going to start with one of my favorite quotes from Harvey Milk, who was one of the first openly gay politicians in the United States. You have to give them hope. Hope for a better world, hope for a better tomorrow. And with that, this is from a book called Pride, The Story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag. It's written by Rob Sanders, illustrated by Steven Salerno. Rob Sanders has so many good nonfiction books about queer history, so I definitely recommend him. But what I really appreciated about this book, it came out a couple of years ago. It was one of the first historical books that I found in a picture book about queer culture. But there's another part where he says a symbol, he thought. We need a symbol that shows who we are and how we feel. Something to carry during the march. Something to make people feel they're part of a community. Something to give people hope. Something extraordinary. And at that point, Gilbert Baker then designs the first flag, which had a total of 8 colors in it. We do have that at the library, but it is a slightly older book. So that's one historical picture book. I want to touch on family books and books about gender as well. There's this lovely book, newer book called Love Without Bounds, an intersection allies book about families. It's written by 3 different doctors. And I just want to read a couple quotes. It's a beautiful book. The illustrations are really simple. It's super inclusive. But I think as an adult dealing with developing my chosen family, this really spoke to me. Sometimes the family we're born into doesn't make us feel how we want to. In these moments, our closest friends step in and help our hearts to mend. A pen pal, a teammate, a snuggly pup, those who care for you and build you up. There's so much of life we can't control, and our chosen family can make us whole. I also really appreciate this book because it offers a discussion guide in the back, which I think is just so helpful for parents navigating this. So, on to the next book. I'm really loving this one. It's called My Maddy, and it's a new one. It's written by Gayle E. Pitman, who has written so many lovely queer books, and it's illustrated by Violet Tobacco. And it's from the perspective of a child. And I'm just going to read randomly from a few pages here. Most mommies are girls. Most daddies are boys. But lots of parents are neither a boy nor a girl. Like my Maddy. Maddy wakes up at the crack of dawn, way before I get up. I like watching the sunrise, Maddy tells me. It's not day and it's not night. It's something in between, and kind of both, and something all its own. The sky changes from red to pink to yellow. My favorite example now. Every morning, Maddy drinks coffee while eating breakfast with a spork. I love sporks, says Maddy. It's not a spork or a fork, but kind of both. That way, you only need one utensil. When Maddy picks me up from school, I get a big bear hug. Now I know how baby bears feel. One day, on our way home, it started to drizzle. The sun shone through the raindrops. Look, I pointed towards the sky. A rainbow! The most beautiful things happen between the rain and the sun, don't they? Said Maddy. I love how nuanced this book is. Just the overall messaging. It's just a very subtle, gentle story about a relationship between a child and a parent, and just talking about that spectrum of gender and sexuality in such a delightful way really pleased me. Moving on to our next book. This one's so great. I'm very excited. Molly's Tuxedo. The cover alone is just so adorable that you have to pick it up. Words by Vicki Johnson, pictures by Gillian Reed. So this is a lovely story about Molly, who is prepping for picture day, which usually is a pretty exciting time for a kid, unless your mom decides that she wants you to wear a dress, an itchy dress with no pockets that you can't do anything in. So just a quick page from this is, Molly knew from experience that dresses were trouble. Dresses have tight places and zippers you can't reach. Dresses mean troublesome tights and fancy shoes with no purpose. Dresses with no pockets means nowhere to put interesting rocks and nowhere to keep dog treats in case you find a stray. Dresses were not right on a regular day, and they were definitely not right for something as important as picture day. Molly wanted to look like she was going on an adventure, not like she was going to a tea party, but she had an idea to save picture day. And not to give anything away, but she does gain the confidence through a friend to change in the bathroom into her brother's tuxedo and to see the delight and the joy and the pride that Molly feels towards the end. And I think what I appreciate about this book is that the mom, it is that typical conversation, like, I don't know, going to a Christmas party and your kid doesn't want to wear those uncomfortable patent leather shoes, but it's beyond that. And the fact that the mom does sort of give up a stink, I think, is pretty realistic. But by the end of the book, the mom recognizes how proud Molly is of how she carries herself. And to add a slightly personal note, this happened to me this year with my niece. We unfortunately had to go to a funeral, and she really wanted to wear a suit. 15 years old, really wanted to wear a suit, but was so nervous. But the moment she was standing next to me in my suit and her dad and her uncle and her brother, I could just see in her body, in her eyes, how comfortable, how welcome she felt in that atmosphere.
Can I say I love that about the dress and like how horrible, but I like to think that dresses are getting better just like books are getting better.
Exactly. We
right?
must have pockets.
That's right. Because we all need to carry around some like rocks or treasures, you know, or at least our phone.
Exactly. Okay, so our next book, which is about gender and pronouns. What are your pronouns today? Hooray for she, he, ze, and they. Written by Lindz, Amer, and illustrated by Kip Eliza Day. My main note on this book actually came from the back. Came from Lindz, the author, talking about something I hadn't really even thought about, but gender euphoria. Instead of having a focus on feeling judged or ostracized or misunderstood or left out, this book really illustrates how a child feels when someone actually sees them and uses the pronouns that they want. It was just very beautiful in that sense. It's a super positive book. With that, let's quickly do a board book. I am very grateful because last week I got to attend an event at the Brick Branch with the author Katy Tanis, who wrote Love in the Wild, which is a board book with just the most beautiful illustrations. I just want to give a little backstory on her. Her whole field is biology. She studies animals. She mentioned that she hates misinformation. As she was collecting all this information of like same-sex relations within the animal community, she was looking at other books, for instance, books with a baby bear and a papa bear, and she pointed out, that's not real. Grizzly bears immediately abandon their families. So I really appreciate how true to the facts she is, and I wanted to highlight the fact that she has another book coming out called Love Under the Stars. I'm very excited to read that when it comes out. And now, let's go to middle readers.
What would we say middle readers are? Let's give a little description for a middle reader.
Middle readers, I mean, I would qualify that as like 8 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
Of course, every child's reading level is different.
Right, absolutely.
Like, radically different.
Yes.
So that's a rough estimate, but I would consider that juvenile fiction.
Right. And I think that as an adult reader, I enjoy middle readers. They're a quick read for me, and I get some different information that maybe I wouldn't get in an adult reader. One book, in fact, was published in 2015 by Alex Gino. The title is Melissa. It was formerly titled as George. And Alex Gino is a non-binary author, and they wrote this book, I think, thinking about their own life and what it was like to grow up in the early 90s. Throughout the whole book, the main character was narrated completely in the female pronoun, she, and it was about a character that was just going through a transformation, and her family knew it, and in the school, and I think it was probably 6th grade, how they were going through the school and encountering the same things that any 6th grader would encounter, bullying and schoolwork and all the stressors with friends. But then at the other piece of it as being wondering, questioning their gender. At the same time, one of my children was starting to use the pronouns they, them, and they were teaching me about non-binary. So it was interesting for me to read this book around that same time and help open my eyes. Alex Gino also wrote some companion books later on. One is called Green, and that's about a non-binary child. My non-binary child happens to love the color green, so again, I connected with it. And then another one they wrote is called Rick, and Rick used to be a bully. I don't want to spoil anything, but Rick was a bully in the story Melissa. And now this is a few years later, probably 8th grade, and Rick is figuring out their own life and seeing how together Melissa is and remembering things and befriending people in, like there was a rainbow coalition in their school. So I love Alex Gino's books. I believe they have several that are not connected, but these 3 are all companions of each other. So I really like that.
And those definitely go in and out of Manchester, at least.
Oh, very popular. Yeah, we definitely have them on our shelves. Another book I read, middle grade, is called Answers in the Pages by David Levithan, who I actually just saw about a week and a half ago at the Hoboken Library. He is with a group, Authors Against Banning Books or Censorship, and this book talks about that, which is very prevalent to today, banning books. This book is told in like 3 stories. Each chapter is 3 different stories. One is set in the 80s, one is set in the present, and one is the actual book that the students are supposed to be reading. One of the parents in the school is very upset they're reading this book, and she's only upset from reading the last page of the book. So it talks a little about book banning and why someone would do that, and how these students were even able to find the book even though the parents didn't want them to.
Call me a typical librarian, but Banned Book Week is by far my favorite week of the entire year. It is really exciting to see the different books challenged over time. It's really blows my mind.
I thought you were going to say about your favorite book, though. Oh, no, it's just that that's your favorite week.
It's my favorite week. I love it. I get so amped up. I had caution tape all over my end cap this year. It is pretty comical. So just to give a little backstory, I want to return to some middle readers, all of which are nonfiction. I came out the year Will and Grace came out.
Right.
I did plenty of oral reports and papers on all these different historical figures that honestly I didn't care much about. I learned history at my grandmother's kitchen table. That is where she would whip out the albums, and each picture was labeled with the name of the person, where it was, what year, and that's how I did it, through oral storytelling. But none of that was queer oral storytelling. So I'm really excited about, I'm going to mention 3 books that are nonfiction, middle readers, that, man, if I had them when I was that age, it would have shifted my life dramatically. So I'm really excited these books exist now. The first one I want to touch on is the Stonewall Riots, Making a Stand for LGBTQ Rights. The exciting part about this one, as someone who likes the visuals, is that it's a graphic novel. I love learning history through graphic novels. I do want to read a little quote by Michael Bronski, who is a Harvard professor and author of A Queer History of the United States for Young People. It's in the intro of the book. The message of Stonewall in 1969 and now is that if we want to see change in the world, we must fight. But there is another message that is equally important that this book beautifully illustrates. We must acknowledge our history, reflect on the people who came before us, preserve their stories, and pass them along. As James Baldwin, an African-American author and gay man, wrote in 1965, the great force of history comes from the fact that we carry it within us, are unconsciously controlled by it in many ways, and history is literally present in all that we do. Everything you do and say now to make the world a better place will be history, as important as anything that happened at Stonewall. I love this book. It's pretty rad. It starts off with an older generation talking about Stonewall and how things were so different that you could be fired for being gay also. And the kids are sort of scoffing her off. But then they go back in time and they experience it for themselves. So I think that's part of the history comic series that I truly love. I'm going to try to say the author's name, Archie Bongiovanni. Another book that I am really digging is The Rainbow Revolutionaries, 50 LGBTQ plus people who made history. And it's written by Sarah Prager and illustrated by Sarah Papworth. The author, Sarah Prager, also wrote the next book I'm going to talk about. This book is really grand if you're just looking for little biographies. It's just a page-long biography of each historical figure, like Gilbert Baker, who made the rainbow flag. This would be good for a little report if you had to. I don't see a kid just sitting here and reading it necessarily, but it's a good resource. But the one that I'm really obsessed with is A Child's Introduction to Pride, the inspirational history and culture of the LGBTQIA plus community. I appreciate this for so many reasons. Obviously, the historical aspect of it, the inclusion of a lot of terms to learn from, just the variation in content alone. I think that it resembles a textbook, but is way more fun than that. But it's broken up into text and pictures on every page. I think it's a really great resource for anyone, a middle reader, I think. that is my other favorite one.
What I like about all of these, also, like, if you're in high school or an adult, like, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know enough about the Stonewall riots.
Exactly.
You know, like, because you said, like, it wasn't taught, it wasn't out there.
I didn't learn about it until I took a gay and lesbian documentary class my senior year of college.
Yep. And maybe I don't want to read a text-heavy book, but that would be great for anyone to read.
Exactly. It breaks it up so that it's not overwhelming to read it.
Oh.
And a lot of these books, just to mention, are on our reading guides that we have created.
Right, the Ocean Pride Committee created reading guides that you can find in your branches, and it has books for children's, teens, adults. It lists where the books are available in our library, print, digital. So.
And there's 50 titles on each, so there's plenty to choose from. And honestly, I will repeat, it was so hard to choose any of them. It's just so amazing to see how many books have been published in the last 10 years alone.
No, I agree. It's so
sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
So I will say, I think there is a slight absence of romantic picture books. I did read a couple of, like, crushes and things like that. And I mentioned this to my friend this week, you know, talking about the podcast, and they were like, yeah, I mean, when I was 7, everybody just had cooties. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, not all kids, but yeah, like,
it's true.
So maybe that's the hindrance, that people don't want to over sexualize, that was air quotes, children. But I do look forward to seeing more books like that. And as much as these books are nuanced and just lovely, I'm looking forward to the day where it's not the main focus. And that's happening more and more, especially there's a graphic novel that I haven't finished reading, but the illustrations are gorgeous. But the Tea Dragon Society, is that the name?
Yep, that's the title you told me.
Beautiful. And about a non-binary character. Things like that where it's just so subtle, it's not the main point of the book. That will excite me even more.
I think you see a little more of the, starting little romance into the middle readers.
Yes.
And then, of course, in the teens.
Yes.
So definitely, I think, and the young ones, it's overall, are there a lot of romantic books for...
No.
Right. So,
exactly.
that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, there's love.
Yes.
There's love and feelings and
Yes.
emotions, but maybe not romance.
And I think it's really helpful, I did want to mention this, the reading book lists, I think, are so helpful, because as someone who's prepping the queer display in the children's department, I've literally had 60 books out for the last 2 months, just trying to read all. And it's not like I could just search LGBTQ plus them.
Right.
Yeah. I had to try really hard to just slowly find some of them, because it's not always clearly an LGBTQ plus side, but it was really interesting, and I hope that I can be a better resource for patrons who are interested in these books, because you really have to, they're all spread out. We don't have, a section.
That's right. Which is good. That's how it should be. It should be spread out in all the subjects. Just like anybody, we want to see inclusivity in all of the library.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think that's our talk. So, is there anything else that you want to share?
I think I covered my entire concept map.
Yes. To those of you on the podcast world, we don't see, but May has a beautiful flow chart that I would love to share, but we can't do that in the podcast world. So,
yeah, no, it's exciting. I mean, as someone who has worked in publishing on and off for 20 years now, things really are shifting. It doesn't mean that we have less challenged books.
Right.
But more content is going out there in a positive light. And the people that need to find those books are hopefully finding them. And if not, they're hopefully asking their friendly librarians for some suggestions.
That's right. Come into our branches and get all these books.
Yep. I'm finally going to return all my books.
That's right. That's right. Once May returns them, you could check them out.
Yeah. I did have a patron, though, who asked me, as a side note, she asked me how many books she could take out, and I said 60. And she said, 60? And I was like, yeah, I have 60 kids' books out right now. And she was like, but why?
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know, they make me feel good. Career development.
Right.
I mean, like, I cry during most kids' books.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm like, yeah, I guess that doesn't make sense to most people. I swear my reading level is higher.
Oh no, it makes complete sense.
But I think with a kid's book, you're able to break down things into much simpler terms. No matter what NCAP I do, I'm reading books about Passover so that I can understand it from a child's perspective. And the same with these books, trying to understand it from a child's perspective who can get very confused. I mean, when I worked at a more progressive nursery school, the kids would always come up to me and like, what are your pronouns? Which was so impressive. Right. And they were like, are you a boy or a girl? And I would say, somewhere in between.
There you go.
And they happily took that answer. Like,
the kids are pretty good with that.
Yeah. So.
No, I love children's literature, and we have so much. And even the pictures, like we didn't even touch on like the beautiful images in these books.
I know. I was going to do Julian the Mermaid.
Oh, I didn't bring that one in with me,
and
but
I'm
I
like, I can't even because the illustrations make that book.
Yes.
And they just came out with another one, Julian at the Wedding.
Oh, yes, I saw that one as well.
Beautiful as well. But, all right.
Well, thank you very much, May.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to visit the Ocean County Library's website for more podcasts and events. All the titles mentioned in today's episode can be found throughout the Ocean County Library, free with your library card. Until next time, happy reading.